Hey folks, it's Rob and welcome back. We're continuing our series on the Monstrous Compendium Appendix for the Mystara setting from 1994 from TSR. Um, Today we're on page 58 with this lovely hookworm looking thing, the Herex. Um, yeah, if you're not into bugs, maybe today's not your day. This wasn't planned by any means. Of course, we're now in spring, but um, this and the next, and we're not even going to get to the next one after that, are all bug based. So if you're, you know, if you're not into that, you're not into that. But I think insects make really great monsters in a lot of ways, and especially really giant ones, which these kind of are. And then we have, well, we'll get into it. Let's start here where we are. The Herex. Now, again, we have the image of the monster here before us, and we have, well, honestly, you can't quite make it. It's less apparent here in the scan that this has wings, right? It's kind of paled into the shot here, but it definitely does have the wings, and it's kind of dragonfly with a long hook body, big stinger here, right? And then, well, as you can see, we have two stat blocks. We have a larva and an adult. Assume this is the adult, and the larva is down here on the ground with no wings. As you can see, 6 legs, so insect, right? Segmented body, all that fun stuff. Let's get into it. I'll start with the stat block. So, Herex, larva, climate terrain, any cavern. The adult is out on the land. They're both rare. They are in a clutch organization. The larvae are active at night while the adults are active during the day. They are carnivores. They are non-intelligent. They don't have treasure. They are neutral because they are functionally insects, right? What moral compass does an insect have? 1 to 6 larvae are in a clutch, while 1 to 3 adults are in a clutch. Armor class 3 for the larva, while the adult is armor class 2. Larva movement rate 12, only on the ground, while the adult still retains a 12 but can fly 15 with a D maneuverability. So it's a bit bumbly, but it does fly. Can you fly? I can't fly. Hit dice 6 to 12 for the larva, while an adult is definitely 13. To hit AC 0 on the larva is going to depend on the number of hit dice for the larva. So if it's just a fresh little newborn little larva, it's going to be 6 hit dice and have to hit AC 0 15. 7 to 8 is 13. 9 to 10 is 11. And 11 to 12 hit dice is 9, while the full size adult is 7. Larva gets 1 attack, while the adult gets 2. On the larva, it's just a 2d8 bite with that mouth it's got. Yeah. Meanwhile, the adult gets a d10 bite. So functionally, it can actually bite for slightly less damage because the bottom end is lower, but the top end is higher, of course. And it has a d6 sting, which I would have thought that stinger would be the bigger problem than the bite on that thing, but looking at the picture, right? Which do you think causes more damage? That little pinchy bite or that great big dagger punching into your armor? But, whatever. Special attacks are acid for the both types, but the adult also gets paralysis. We're looking forward to reading about that. No special defenses or magic resistance for either form. The larva is size large to huge, I suppose, depending on how many hit dice it has. 10 to 20 feet long, while the adult is huge at 20 feet long. It's a 20-foot long flying insect with 13 hit dice. Yeah. Morale, surprisingly, is 15 for the larva and 16 for the champion, so that's quite stalwart. XP value is going to depend on the number of hit dice for the larva. 6 hit dice gets you 420, 7, 650, 8, 975, 9, 1,400, 10, 2,000, 11, 3,000, and 12 hit die larva, 4,000 XP. Meanwhile, the adult is worth 7,000 unto itself. Per. I expect you're earning it. Let's read on. Herex are giant insectoid creatures with dangerous acidic bites. Characters can encounter them in any of the 3 stages of their life cycle: egg, larva, or adult. Now, obviously, we haven't statted up an egg because an egg can't do anything to you. It's an egg, right? You're like, Rob, we only read 2 stat blocks. Yeah, eggs don't need stat blocks. They're eggs. So, continuing on. However, only the latter 2 forms pose immediate danger to outsiders, hence the stat blocks. The spherical eggs measure about 3 feet in diameter with hard, opaque white shells. When hatching time grows near, brave observers can see a glinting, shadowy form, the larva, shifting inside the shell. Yeah, that's a good bit of, set dressing, right? You see them just come. Just a little slightly backlit. You can see the little shadow moving around inside the egg. Yeah, you want to crack open that egg? Sure you want to smash it? You sure? You sure? Go on. Go on. What's keeping you? You got that mace in your hand, don't you? Yeah. Larva. The larval form of a Herex resembles a flattened, wingless beetle with an elongated, flexible abdomen, large head, and powerful mandibles. The mottled dun-colored creature moves swiftly on its 6 short legs. Larvae range from 10 to 20 feet in length. Combat. A Herex larva seems continuously ravenous, roving the underground passages and caverns of its birthplace in search of prey. The larva uses its bite as its main attack. In addition to suffering normal damage, 2d8, any creature it bites also becomes injured by its acidic saliva. Saliva, Rob. You read acidic, and then you have to change gears for saliva, right? The acid permanently reduces the efficiency of any normal armor it touches by a +2 penalty. Interesting. For example, plate mail becomes AC 5 instead of AC 3, and inflicts a permanent +1 penalty to magical armor. Ooh, ouch. Each successive bite has the same effect. If the armor reaches AC 9 or worse, it disintegrates. The acidic saliva does not affect magical protection devices, for example, rings of protection or cloaks of displacement. Victims wearing no armor suffer 1d10 additional points of acid damage from the bite. Yeah, that's okay. The bite's not pleasant. And yeah, I bet your party members are going to take it a lot more seriously when their magic armor starts losing pluses. Yeah. Not so friendly now, is it? Habitat/society. Herex lives solely to perpetuate the species. Lacking any quantifiable intelligence, they mindlessly go about their limited activities. Unlike some insects, Herex do not maintain any form of hive or group home. Although they often remain with others of their clutch, they are not particularly social creatures. Once they burst from their eggs, the larvae spend all their energy hunting, growing, and molting. When a larva reaches approximately 20 feet in length, it leaves its subterranean birthplace and digs its way to the surface, using its mandibles and saliva to tunnel through solid rock if need be. Once outside, the Herex sheds its carapace a final time, emerging in adult form, 13 hit dice. An adult Herex, I imagine it'll be a bit of a pupa stage there while it goes into maybe a cocoon or dormant state for a moment while it kind of molts, right? And also with that tunneling, that's certainly something you could incorporate into a cavern or into a dungeon, right? This 3 foot wide, 4 foot wide, kind of just thin but fairly smooth tunnel through rock, right? And the party's like, what the heck caused that, right? But sorry, I dropped the passage mid-part there. uh, let's see. Yes, they once out. Yeah, the hit dice. An adult Herex flies about searching for both food and a mate. The male dies shortly after mating, while the female burrows into a deep cavern or dungeon to lay 1d6 eggs before dying. So you may have a bit of a corpse lying there, too, if the eggs haven't really hatched yet, right? In 4 months, the cycle begins again when the new eggs hatch. So, okay, the eggs take 4 months to hatch. We learn all these bits as we go along. Ecology. The acidic saliva of the Herex, if preserved in a ceramic container, can eat away almost any other material, including metal. Such acid also can be used to create universal solvent, which is a magic item. Adult. When mature, a Herex has a body very similar to its larval form, but with a smaller head and mandibles, 4 thin wings like those of a dragonfly. I really only see the 2 on here. Even in my print copy where it's a bit darker, and I gotta say, the wings are very gossamer. I guess maybe these are these are separated by this line down the middle, right? Okay. Usually the art's a little more demonstrative. Okay. Anyhow. And a 5-foot-long stinger is at the end of its abdomen. Well, that I can say is definitely what we see here. An adult Herex always attacks from the air, sweeping down on its opponents from above. It lands only when it has rendered its foe immobile or dead. Although the bite of an adult Herex seems less dangerous than that of the larva, 1d10 points of damage, the effects of its acidic saliva mirror that of the larva's. An adult also can attack with its tail stinger, which causes 1d6 points of damage, and injects poison that paralyzes victims for 48 rounds unless they make a successful saving throw versus poison. Yeah, that's certainly worse. Yeah. One of these things, depending on your party, is going to be a challenge. 1d3 of them as an adult. Yeah. I mean, at AC 2, it's not too hard to hit for a higher level party, but it's got plenty of hit points to tank some hits. It's flies. The paralysis is especially troublesome. The eating away of the armor is just going to make your party hate the whole experience. It's good that way. And hey, no treasure. It's just an environmental hazard best avoided. That's a point should make right now, is that not every encounter should be defeated in combat. Sometimes it's best to actually avoid engaging with the monster because there's very little reward in it for the party. And this is definitely one of those where all you're getting out of it is combat experience and maybe some bits you can salvage off the thing. Otherwise, the party is risking magic or solid armor, heavy injury, and for what? Some XP, right? Now, if they've been taken, what you do, if you really want them to have to fight this, is that this is the target of a bounty or some other, like they need to remove this hazard. Because you can imagine these things would be a nightmare for nearby livestock, farms, towns, city. You can't have these things buzzing around. Who needs a 20-foot long dragonfly over the town with a 5-foot stinger? No. What's the king going to do? The king's going to be like, get it. I don't care what it takes. Get it. my daughter's hand in marriage to whoever gets rid of that thing. That's how you get them to have to engage with it. Otherwise, This is just something for them to avoid. You know, if they're in the deepest, darkest jungle and they're investigating that ruin that you sent them the map for, and this is what comes up on your table or your planned little, like, encounter, there's no treasure. There's no need to engage with this. If they can smartly avoid it or deal with it, then they should. And you should reward them for avoiding an encounter intelligently. You really should. Okay, moving on to our next item today, and that's Hivebrood on page 59. Now, this is actually a 2-page. So you can see here we have page 1 with all the stats, and page 2 with 2 pictures. And I like these guys because they're functionally like ant people, and that there's certainly room for that in a fantasy setting, I feel. But you have a picture here of like more of a maggoty one with a head, and you have one that's holding a spear. And again, the picture is a bit, significantly more faded than what I have here in my hand, because the scanning process has clearly caused this to wash out. But what's not readily apparent here is anything that's really kind of faintly blue to begin with. So, like, this is definitely a spear that this guy's holding, and there's actually like something on the tip of this ant's finger here, claw. That's also just a bit blue, and I don't think it's. I think it's holding something. Honestly, it'll be interesting to read about it. All this stuff, the dark stuff here, is actually darker, and it contrasts with this yellow here, and it's actually got this really fine kind of ant hairs up here. If you ever looked at an ant up close, like under a microscope. But yeah, okay, let's get into it. So, Hivebrood. Now, I can't have both pages up on the same time because this is actually the back of the first page, right? So, sorry about that. Yeah. So, 59, and then knock it off, and then 60, right? 60 is the back page of 59. So, the flip page. So we're just going to have to continue through Hivebrood on the stat block first, instead of me throwing up both pages on the screen at the same time. Sorry about that. As you can see, we have 5 types of Hivebrood here. It's Broodling, Soldier, Lieutenant, Mother, and Controller. Okay. So, I see we have descriptions of these, and I think that's probably... I see we have 4 descriptions, actually. Broodling, Soldier, Lieutenant, and Mother, and Controller. Okay, so it's actually all 5 there. Well, let's start there today, down here in this part of the text block, right? And then we'll go through the stats now once we have a bit of context, right? Broodling. Broodlings are the altered hosts of parasitic Hivebrood larvae. Oh, lovely. Outsiders can recognize them by the fibrous membranes that cover their eyes and by their chitinous skin. A broodling's insect-like way of moving adds to its frightening aspect. Lovely. Soldier. Though humanoid in appearance, soldiers have antennae, compound eyes, and a tough, chitinous exoskeleton. Okay. Lieutenant. Larger, stronger, and more intelligent than the average soldier, a lieutenant otherwise resembles the Hivebrood insects it leads. Mother and Controller. These Hivebrood members control the rest of the hive. Both forms have large, sac-like bodies and insectoid faces. Although the Controller can attack with its claws and bite, neither of these forms is very mobile. Okay, so that's a Controller we saw. Right. Let's read some stats. Broodling, any cavern. Soldier, any land. Lieutenant, any land. Mother, any cavern. Controller, any cavern. Frequency, rare for Broodling and Soldier. Then we move to very rare for Lieutenant, Mother, and Controller. Organization is going to be colony throughout. They are active at night throughout. They are carnivores. Broodlings are semi-intelligent, about a 4. Soldiers, low, about a 7. Lieutenant is average at 10. The mother is non-intelligent. While the controller is exceptional at 16. That's actually very smart for monsters. Broodlings have treasure, O and I. Soldiers, N-O-U and I. Again, I being like, in the lair, I believe. The Lieutenant, N-U-V and I. Mother, N-O-U-V and I. And controller, N-O-U-V and I. And I know that U and V is actually not a bad treasure type to encounter. That's a lot of loot, potentially, in the hive. Their alignment is neutral. Okay, so, they're not evil. They're also not good. They are out for their own self, by and large, and don't care what else is going on. Broodlings, 1d10 times 10 appearing. Cheese, 10 to 100. Soldier, d10 times 10. Lieutenant, 2d4. Mother, 1. Solitary, basically. Controller, there can be 1d4 controllers. Okay. The Broodlings have an armor class of 6. The soldiers have an armor class of 3. Lieutenants have an armor class of 2. Mother has an armor class of 8. And the controller has an armor class of 6 because they have like sack-like bodies with limited movement, is what I'm gathering from before. So, they can't evade much and they have sack bodies. How much damage resistance does a sack body have, right? Broodlings have a move of 12. That continues until we hit Mother, which has a move of 1. So exceedingly slow. And the controller has a move of 3. Hit dice for Broodlings as host plus 1d4 hit points or 2 plus 1, whichever is greater. So if the host had 1 hit point and you roll 1, you can bring it to 3, I guess. It doesn't say 2 hit dice plus 1. It just says 2 plus 1. Why didn't you just say 3? Yeah, it must mean 2 hit dice. Yeah, because it's as host plus d4 hit points or 2 hit dice plus 1, whichever is greater. Okay. So, like, if it got Bob, the first level magic user, only had 1 d4 hit points, adding a d4 hit points isn't actually going to probably be greater than 2 hit dice plus 1. Yeah, okay. All right, I got you. Soldier, 3 hit dice plus 1. Lieutenant, 5 hit dice plus 1. Remember that there's 10 to 100 of these things appearing for the soldier. The lieutenant, 2 to 8, right? Mother, solitary, 12 plus 2 hit points, 12 hit dice plus 2. And then the controller is 6 hit dice plus 6. Broodling to hit AC 0 is as host or 19. Soldiers have it to hit AC 0 of 17. Lieutenants, 15. Mother, 9. And a controller, 13. So Mother's quite good at hitting things, even though she can't barely move. Broodlings get a number of 3 or 2 attacks. Soldiers get 3 or 2. Lieutenants get 3 or 2. Mother has no attack, despite having a to-hit AC 0 of 9. Why didn't we just put nil? I don't know. Like, damage is nil as well for Mother. Yeah. Controller gets 3 attacks. On the Broodling, it's a d4 for a claw, d4 for a claw, and a d6 for a bite, or d6 for a bite, or by a weapon. All right. Soldiers, d4 claw, d8 bite, or d8 bite and weapon. Okay. Lieutenants are d6 claw, d10 bite, or d10 bite and by weapon. Mother has nil. No damage. Controller gets a D4 claw and a D4 claw and a D6 bite. Okay. Special attacks. The Broodling has hive mind powers. Soldiers have paralysis and hive mind powers, as does the lieutenant. Mother has poisonous gas. And the controller gets paralysis and hive mind powers. Special defenses, immune to vision affecting spells. So they can't be blinded. And does that mean that they can see in the darkness caused by a darkness spell? I wonder. Magic resistance? No magic resistance. These are all size medium, but they vary. So broodlings are, well, actually the mother is large, but broodlings are 4.5 to 7 feet tall. Soldiers are 5 feet tall. Lieutenants are 7. Mother is 12 feet long. And controllers are 7 feet long. Morale is 20 fearless, basically unbreakable morale. Broodlings are 270 or by host. Soldiers are 420 XP. Again, you're throwing 10 to 100 of these at your party. Lieutenants are 1,400 XP. Mother is 4,000 XP. And a controller is 4,000 XP. Right. Let's get into some of this description, because we got plenty to read. Let's see here. Hive broods are communities of insects somewhat similar to ant colonies. Unlike ants, however, the large parasitic members of a hive brood live by infesting other beings, controlling and eventually destroying the hosts in the process. For members of a hive brood, individuals have no meaning or worth, only the interests of the hive matters. Hive brood insects have many specialized forms, each one performing a specific function for the hive. The 5 different functional types of hive brood member are the broodling, soldier, lieutenant, mother, and controller. A hive brood also contains insects in larval form that resembles a legless beetle about 6 inches in length. The larva has 1 hit point and AC 10 and cannot move or attack on its own. Another hive brood member places a larva on a paralyzed humanoid victim. The immature creature uses its mouth to attach itself to the back of the victim's neck, where it bites into the spinal cord and begins altering the host's metabolism. Jeez. Although it is kind of like one of the versions of the blue beetle. A humanoid altered by the parasitic larva becomes a broodling, the least powerful type of mobile hive brood insect. Eventually, a broodling develops into a soldier. Broodlings and soldiers are the most common hive brood members. Broodlings and soldiers follow lieutenants, a stronger form of soldier. A controller, sometimes called the hive mind, transmits knowledge and abilities to broodlings, soldiers, and lieutenants, in effect coordinating all the hive brood's activities. A mother exists solely for reproduction. All hive brood members emit a sickly sweet chemical odor and make a wet clacking sound with their large mandibles. Broodlings use their host's teeth to imitate this sound. That's actually kind of funny. Just clack. The following text details each type of functional hive insect. So we went through the broodling, soldier, lieutenant, mother, and controller. We're not going to read it again. Combat. In battle, all members of the hive brood attack fearlessly, having no thought whatsoever for personal safety. The controllers guide combat. These very intelligent creatures will willingly sacrifice any of their vast resources for the best advantage of the hive. All members of the hive brood fight as well in darkness as they do in daylight, sensing the position of opponents by feel and smell. This ability makes them immune to the effects of spells such as darkness, although this type of spell cast in conjunction with silence confuses the creatures enough to give them a -2 modifier to all attacks. Hive brood insects suffer double damage from fire and heat-based attacks. Nice. The attack of each Hivebrood type follow. The attacks of each Hivebrood type follow. Okay. Note that the controller can confer additional abilities upon any creature. Okay, now we have to change page. Behold our insects again. So I would say it's like a captain or a lieutenant, right? You know, well, there's no captain. You know, there's a lieutenant, and next to it would be a controller, let's call it, because it's actually holding something, I think, instead of it just being a mother crapping out beetles, right? So, right at the top here. Broodlings do not make the best warriors since their bodies are still undergoing metamorphosis, but they can attack with their developing bite and claws or with a bite and one weapon, often a spear or axe. Even poorer warriors, mothers engage in combat only if the very center of the hive faces a threat. As their only form of attack, mothers emit a cloud of noxious chemicals within a 30-foot radius. They can spew this cloud up to 3 times per day. Those caught in a spray must make a saving throw versus poison at a -1 penalty or suffer 3d6 points of damage per round until making a successful saving throw against the chemical cloud. Soldiers are the Hivebrood's real workers. They attack in the same manner as broodlings, but their sticky, saliva-filled bite causes paralysis unless a successful saving throw versus poison counters it for 2d8 turns, or until a neutralize poison, cure serious wounds, or haste spell helps the victim recover. Soldiers almost never kill paralyzed victims immediately. Instead, they bring them into the hive and serve as hosts for new broodlings. Lieutenants command clusters of Hivebrood soldiers with military precision. These officers of the hive give orders through chemical scent emission in a 30-foot radius. They also can store up to 5 hive mind abilities, see below, and pass them on to the insects under their command. Although controllers can attack with the soldier's claws and paralytic bite, their main ability, called Hive Mind, remains much more fearsome. Hive Mind allows the controller to gain all the abilities of the creature it eats, including any saving throws that improve on its own. It can pass on these Hive Mind abilities to any Hivebrood member through airborne chemical emissions. If, for example, a controller has dined on a 3rd-level thief and a 6th-level wizard, it can send out chemical signals to all in the Hivebrood that enable them to hide in shadows as 3rd-level thieves, or cast any of the spells a wizard has memorized at the time the character was eaten. Thus, all the members of a hive could cast fireball spells if a controller has eaten a wizard who knew and had memorized the spell. Exclamation point indeed! Just a dramatic change in problem if 10 to 100 soldier ants all know how to cast fireball or just magic missile. Sleep. If they get a magic user, just imagine the trouble that can cause. Hopefully, before the magic user was eaten, they used up their fireballs, right? Carrying onwards. Fortunately, the hive mind skill transfer has limits. Chemical emissions travel at a rate of only 60 feet per round and dissipate completely after 3 rounds. If Hivebrood insects do not use a hive mind ability within 3 rounds of receiving it, they lose the ability, except lieutenants, which can store abilities as mentioned above. Furthermore, a controller can activate only 1 hive mind ability at a time in a single hive. If it emits a second chemical scent before the first has vanished from the minds of its Hivebrood members, 6 rounds, recipients become confused and unable to attack, although they remain able to defend themselves. If Hivebrood insects receive 2 or more hive mind scents from different controllers, they can use them all, though only 1 at a time. You're going to need to work out this hive if you're going to use these monsters. You can tell that right now, right? You're going to need to detail out the whole hive. Once a controller emits a hive mind's ability as a chemical scent, it forgets the ability, although it may keep an unlimited number in its mind at any one time. This collection can include duplicated abilities and spells if the controller has eaten several individuals with similar abilities. An ability is defined as one spell of any level or type, a skill such as a thief ability, an attack rank, or a fighter's option such as multiple attacks, smash, parry, or disarm. A Hivebrood member loses 1 hit point in the process of casting any spell, yet the creature will suffer the loss, even die, to cast the spell for the good of its all-important hive. That tracks. Habitat/society. Within the Hivebrood, the members form a strict and distinct hierarchy, each doing its appointed task to the best of its ability to further the goals of the hive. Each Hivebrood has one mother, the queen, and living center of the hive. This large creature can barely move, but others of the Hivebrood protect it with fanatical devotion. Besides laying eggs, it secretes a chemical-rich, foul-smelling jelly, which it applies to certain larvae to cause them to develop into lieutenants and controllers. Not only do the controllers dispense hive mind abilities, they make most of the Hivebrood's decisions, including telling the mother when to produce another mother egg and choosing where to send this egg, with a retinue, to start another hive. Larvae force vast metabolic changes on their unfortunate hosts. Within 1 day, the host body has developed a chitinous outer layer of skin and fibrous coating over his or her eyes. Casting Cure Disease or Heal on a victim kills the parasitic larva, but the host creature remains badly affected, suffering a permanent loss of 1d6 points from intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, and charisma due to the broodling's metabolic tampering. However, the host does gain a -1 bonus to armor class due to chitinous nature of its new skin. That is not really much of an upside. I would say a limited wish can probably counteract all those effects. Limited wish is not exactly an easy spell to get your hands on, and obviously full on wish, right? Anything limited wish can do better. But, wow. Maybe a restore spell? I don't know. You decide. You're the DM, obviously. After 1d4 plus 1 days, the broodling becomes dormant for 1d4 plus 4 hours. During this time, it sheds its outer skin and emerges as an adult soldier, or a lieutenant, or a controller, if the larva received a gel treatment from its mother. It loses all the host's remaining characteristics and memories. At this point, no one can rescue the host from the Hivebrood. The simple-minded soldier the broodling has become responds to its chemical orders, otherwise resorting to instinctive, violent actions. So yeah, if your party's thief got taken by the Hivebrood and you didn't get him back because you had to do things for like a week and you came back, he's gone. Gary's gone, man. Don't even try. You can get his body back, but it's a soldier ant now. Or worse. Yep. Ecology. Hivebrood are almost always the dominant form of life in their areas. If creatures discover other forms of intelligence nearby, the controllers will order soldiers to bring in specimens to serve as hosts and to get rid of the remaining pests. Controllers also dispatch raiders to find adventurers and others who might possess special abilities they can learn. These creatures seem indifferent to any treasure that might lie in their or near their Hivebrood. Only items such as scrolls, readable by the controller that has eaten a literate spellcaster, prove relevant. Otherwise, treasure the creatures ignore. Alchemists prize the paralytic Hivebrood saliva for its usefulness as a base in preparing a variety of magical potions. They will pay up to 100 gold pieces per vial. Right. Yeah. Yikes. This could be the core of an entire campaign dealing with a hive of this nature. Please remember, they're not actively evil. They are neutral. They are just interested in their own survival and goodwill. Good and survival and prospering. Right? They are not evil, but they need your body and will destroy your mind to procreate. They desire your skills and cannot have them without taking your mind. It's interesting. They're not even unintelligent. They at all levels they have a mind, except for the mother. The mother apparently does not have a mind. But yeah, interesting, right? Anyhow, we're well over time. That took a long time for me diverting, etc. Thank you very much for your attention and time, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen here today to me talk about all this and me witter on. If you like this, please hit like below. If you want to hear more of this and make sure you get the next video, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. I really like your feedback, and it makes me feel good, honestly, to know I'm not just talking to myself here, but, you have a fantastic day. Goodbye.